Hello, you are listening to The Property Vault with Ashley Wald, and today I'm joined with Daniel Ansell. Dan is a member of EXP just the same as me, and thank you for joining us today.
Welcome. No wish.
So just give the listeners a little bit of background on yourself if you can, please.
Yeah, so I did 10 years at the Connells Group from trainee negotiator through to senior area director. I think it's 16 promotions in 10 years. And then went from there to MD at Spicer Hart, which is the country's largest independent estate agent. And then I sort of decided I was going to set up myself and do something locally and not travel the country all the time.
Okay, fair play to you. I mean, that's we've had a bit of a chat just before we started this podcast, but that must have been quite a huge step back for you in the sense of financially having such high position roles within corporate world to obviously set up completely by yourself.
Absolutely. Going from a good six-figure sum to nothing over a month period is it's quite daunting.
Yeah.
But luckily, I was in a position where I'd saved a bit of money, got a little few other interests going on outside of this, and it made it pretty easy to do.
Okay. So it's not always about money. It's definitely not always about money. That's one thing I think for sure. You've got to be happy in your job role.
Absolutely.
That is worth everything over than what's coming in every month. But equally, you need to make sure you're covering your bills naturally.
Yep.
What was the deciding factor for you to step away and to effectively set your own business up?
Time. I wanted to be at home more for my daughter, have a bit more personal time. I've been on 2 abroad holidays in 14 years. The one thing I never wanted to do when I was employed was miss anything of my daughter. So I didn't miss Christmas, things at school or, parents' evenings or anything like that. Did a few pickups and drop-offs as area director and MD at those 2 businesses. But it's just that everyday life, getting up and going 200 miles to an office and then coming back the same day, or being in a board meeting all day. It's really, really draining and can have a big impact on your home life in terms of, especially with kids. You only got one chance of bringing up your kids.
Yeah, I must confess, I can't even actually begin to think about that. So I've been quite fortunate to become a father since I've had my own business. My daughter's going to be 2 in a couple of months, and been quite fortunate to not have to rush to the office for a certain time or an early morning meeting, so to speak. So I actually feel very fortunate that I get to have that luxury of, like getting back home after a dog walk with her in the park at like 9 a.m. where everybody's already at their desk, so to speak, in these days as well.
Yeah. I think for me, I started in a estate agency just before my daughter was born. And people who have seen my LinkedIn posts and my social media will know that I had a sort of difficult life from like mid-teens to sort of mid-20s with gambling addictions, depression, suicide, all that sort of stuff. And it led to, when I found out I was going to be a dad, I was on $9,000 a year at the Connells Group as a trainee negotiator. And it sort of kicked something off in my head to think, I've got to do something. I've either got to go and find another job or do really well at this. Because at the time I was just getting by in that role. I was probably 3-4 months in. And I wasn't really trying particularly hard. It was just turn up and, like most estate agents, hope, right, we will sell some houses for me. I'll go and do a couple of viewings.
Yeah.
And then it sort of went, I've got to sell some houses. I've got to, and after that, like I say, 16 promotions in 10 years thereafter was a pretty quick rise to the semi-top, I guess, in the corporate world of area director, senior area director.
So becoming a father for you really changed your trajectory and where you want to be in life.
Absolutely. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have stayed in the estate agency. I probably found another job to go to and another job to go to. Probably always selling something, but it wasn't my direction until my daughter Perry Ray was born. So.
Yeah, love it, mate. Honestly, I do. I remember you doing a LinkedIn post, which I found very inspiring, to be fair, where I appreciate being quite honest about it as well, to be fair, where your mental health really wasn't good. And if I remember correctly, you were really, really dark, weren't you?
Yeah. So I was just for my 21st birthday, I tried to commit suicide, which was a obviously difficult thing for everybody in my family and surrounding, but I was a gambling addict. There was nothing to do where I grew up at the time, and it's still not good enough. I'm actually lobbying with the local council here to do more things for youths to get them, enjoying and understanding, what life can bring, rather than just hanging around and drinking and whatever it is that kids do these days. So yeah, it was really dark times, and you don't really get over that. But for the next couple of years, it was just sort of getting by.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, like my daughter absolutely saved me. So
Love that. Honestly, I think there definitely has to be that quality within the individual to have that light bulb moment to go, I need to change my life.
Yeah.
The fact you're working is a good start, because obviously, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are in that position that don't even have an income coming in, even though it was only £9,000
Yeah.
plus commission, but you was only there early days. You do have to have that, like I say, quality within you to go, I need to fix this, I need to do this.
I've always been super competitive. I played a lot of sports as a kid. Even with the gambling, I was a very good, I still am a very good poker player, but I was a very, very good poker player. Won a couple of tours, and got onto the European Poker Tour at a very young age. And yeah, it was, so I've always been competitive, but my life meandered for like a couple of years just because I couldn't chuck myself into anything. But like I say, as soon as with how we got brought up as kids, we didn't have a lot. Didn't have much at all, and there's a fair few of us in our household. My dad had gone before I was born, and all that sort of stuff. All the modern day tales of woe, I guess, in a family life. And then I thought, I can't have that for her, so do something about it.
Love it. Honestly, that's inspiring just in itself, to be fair. So if anybody is listening or watching this and you are struggling with any mental health, reach out to either us two, or we can obviously send you to the right channels. So you've got quite a few contacts to be yourself.
Do a little bit with mine, do a little bit with a local charity as well. But I put a post out this summer. I always do an anniversary post. I think it was 14th or 15th year anniversary, whatever it was, I can't remember. And put the post out on the day. And this year was quite worrying because it was the most interactions I've ever had in terms of likes and, the bits and bobs that you get on social media. But it was also the most inbox messages I got from other people wanting to talk. Over 200 people this year contacted me to say, could we have a chat?
And that's why it's really important to like share these stories. Like, it's not about, if some people do think it's like clickbait for attention or anything like that, it really, really isn't. If it's a case of like, you've had 200 people, message you.
Yeah.
If you can support one of them,
Absolutely.
that post was worth absolutely everything, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've never asked them if I could share their inboxes, but if I ever did, there's some in there where, I've got a message at gone 1 o'clock in the morning that I've replied to because it's pinged through, and I knew whose person it was, and they just needed to talk at that time. So yeah, it's good. And when I was in the corporate world, the first time I ever celebrated the anniversary, if you like, I put a post up and I was asked to remove it by that company. Because I was in a position of power, as they would call it, and they said, that's a real sign of weakness, and I refused to do it. It was probably where my time with that company started to come to an end, and yeah, I just thought I can't take it down. I understood what they were saying, I sort of get it, but I thought it was a position of strength to show
Absolutely.
they can do something different.
Yeah, yeah.
Because salespeople in general do suffer with mental health issues because they're very often hand to mouth. They're very often, their income is determined by potentially the company they work for, the market that they're in, a government, the Bank of England. There's so much stuff with a salesperson that I think can affect them. So
I think sales itself can be a drug, can't it? In the sense, it's an addiction, in the sense of like the feeling you get if you win an instruction, or if you get a sale, or you sell it in X amount of time, or the fee is so much. Like, it can be a drug, it can be an addiction.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you go through a spell where it's not rolling that way for you, you might feel completely like off the route that you're on, sort of thing.
I think you're right. And when I was in like management roles, whether it be area management, MD roles, I always made sure I was like at the forefront. So, I remember the first time I ever went to the crew office in my last role as MD. It's probably one of their best offices. And I went in and the phones were just ringing off the hook. I answered the phones because I'm obsessed with giving good customer service. But the people in the room at the time were a bit like, oh my God, the MD's just answered the phone. What, we're all going to get told. No, you're not going to get told off. It's just what I do. If the phones are ringing, I'll answer them. Whereas, if you've been in the corporate world, or anybody watching that's been in the corporate world, you know that most people with a title will walk in and sit out the back and pick their laptop up, have a cigarette. Mine was answer some phones, go and knock some doors, do evaluation, which I think, although my career in corporate and independent management came to an end, I think it really brought me a lot of, respect, if you like.
Lead by example.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. So going back to when you were asked to take that post down, can you try and think back to what year that would have been? Because I know mental health really has only really become...
Well, it would have been the COVID year, so it would have been 2020.
Oh, okay. So it was actually sooner than I initially thought, and to be
Yeah, it
honest.
would have been 2020.
So like, mental health has been on the cards way before 2020. Obviously, it's become more and more, you know, aware now since obviously COVID, because unfortunately the struggles people face being in lockdown, etc.
I was maybe a little ashamed of it before that. I probably didn't own what I'd done very well. I probably hadn't given myself full accountability for it. So I probably didn't share it as much. But the moment I started sharing it, even in my last role where we would introduce people to like the training center, I'd always stand up and go, there's a few things you need to know about me, because you might see it on social media, but one is this, two is that, and just tell them my story. And, often at the end of those training days, people would be asked to feedback what they enjoyed about training. And it would be often that, through adversity, people can go from absolutely nothing to, the roles that I've done, which,
Yeah.
are fairly significant in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about being yourself as well, though, isn't it? To be honest, and like obviously that's just one topic of this conversation today. But thank you for just being honest and sharing about that. To be fair, because if we can get that message across to more and more people, obviously, then we can help more people, hopefully. So,
Absolutely.
so your career, then you decided to leave the corporate world, leave a juicy salary to say the least, and to set up your own estate agency, which I know you've got other business as well, haven't you? To be fair.
Yeah, I've got another sort of interest outside of this, which is in sort of clothing and household appliances and stuff like that, which is good. It's meant to be a hobby, but it's good fun. Got a couple of little contracts now with people for their like end of line clothing and all that sort of stuff, and I just sell them at a reasonable price, rather than if you want to go out and look good these days, and especially for kids and stuff, where they get decided what sort of level of person they are, depending on what tracksuit they've got on or what t-shirt they've got on or whatever. Most of my stuff goes out and it's sold at probably 25% of what it is on the high street,
Right, but
which has been pretty good to do.
yeah, absolutely.
And anything that we can't get rid of within a sort of 3-month turnaround, we donate to charity.
Love it.
We get quite a lot of kids, like kids toys and stuff come in that we didn't order, but just come in within our orders. Often we'll go and give those to charity as well, and just try and help out where we can.
How did that whole initiation come about for you to set that up?
Somebody just told me about the Vinted website,
Yeah.
and I looked at it and I thought, well, there's got to be opportunities here where you can do something similar, but without without selling your own stuff, and without making it all about profit, I guess. So it was just sort of I looked at that, and then I looked online and saw a few opportunities where you can get sort of end of line stuff, and then it got into having conversations with big retailers. So it's been a pretty good journey.
How on earth, like, do you go from being an estate agent to genuinely getting into that? Like,
I've always sold stuff. So when I was
spiders, I suppose.
yes,
Isn't it?
when I was 14, so I got sort of bullied through school. So we were, like I say, from quite a poor family. We didn't have a lot. So I chose not to go to the last school. So around here, it was primary, high school, sixth form, or grammar school, or whatever you want to call it. And instead of going to the one that all the kids went to that I sort of grew up with, I decided to go to one that was a bit further out. But to get there, you have to get the bus, or like private taxi or whatever. My mum simply couldn't afford it. So I got a job at the shop before going to school. That paid for me to get to school. Once I started there and got to 16, I decided I was going to stay on and do A levels. So I needed a better job. But I used to work. I used to go to the shop in the morning, then go to school. Then I'd go and do Morrison's at night, sort of 5 o'clock till 7, 8, 9, depending on what shifts I had available.
Yeah.
And then when I got to 17, I was allowed to do before school, Morrison's, and then I started working at Wetherspoons till close. So I sort of had 3 jobs by the time I finished my A levels on a daily basis. But even when I was at school, we used to go to a place called Macro, like Costco, places like that, because my stepdad had his own business, and I'd just buy stuff that I could sell at school, sweets and stuff.
So basically, sales was kind of ingrained in you by your family not having a lot,
Yeah,
effectively.
yeah, for sure. If you can't sell something, you can't have something.
Yeah, yeah. Love that, to be fair. Which is quite interesting that, unfortunately, then obviously you did unfortunately take a bit of a U-turn, didn't you? Like,
No, I just didn't know what to do with money once I started having money, because I was working a couple of jobs like almost full time once I finished my A levels. So I didn't go to university or anything, and I didn't really go and do my A levels very often. I didn't go to school very often at that point, because I preferred to go to work. If I'm honest with you,
Definitely.
yeah. But then the only thing that was around where I grew up was bookies, pubs, just the things that you really don't want to sort of get involved in at that age. And I realized very young that I was obsessed, or could be classed as an addict, so I didn't really take up drinking. I've never smoked, never took drugs or anything like that, but I realized I was pretty obsessed and addicted to gambling. So
Right.
and at one point I could have bet with you what color car will go past next and not care how much I have on it.
Whether you are. That is quite interesting, to be fair. I've never really been into gambling or not, but then again, most of the people that used to like gamble that I used to work with and stuff, it was just like, doing an acca on a weekend, doing and stuff, which, to be fair, I'm not massively into football. I love watching it, but I couldn't tell you who plays for who.
I've got to be honest though, like once when I came out of hospital, they told me that so I was in hospital for quite a long time. I was lucky to come out. I took I think it was 81 diazepam, 50 odd painkillers, which is the doctor said enough to kill a rhino. So and I was lucky to come out, really lucky to come out. But one of the agreements of coming out was to go and have therapy or have counselling. And I went to this counselling session. I only ever went to one, which is not the agreement, but that's how it happened. And I said to the lady, lovely lady, but I said, what is your recommendation? She said, well, you need to sort of wean yourself off of gambling. Take it down what you bet in and all that sort of stuff. And at the time I could be betting 4, 5, 6 grand a week. It didn't really matter. And I said, well, I can't do that because I've got no income. She said, well, you can't go cold turkey. They were her exact words. And I said, well, I bet you I can. And I never had another bet until probably 6, 7 years ago, when I have no buzz from it. I could have a bet with you right now and I'd get nothing out of it whatsoever. But
So that technically you've still won that bet then.
yeah, I won that bet with her. That was the biggest bet of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your first sales job?
First sales job, I started importing designer radiators off the internet from Sweden and selling them to places like Plum Centre and Wix's. Well, not Wix's, like places like that, but like more local independents. So I started that. I think I probably started doing that when I was about 19. Then I went into car sales, worked at Nissan and a couple of other places. Yeah, it was just I just didn't get the buzz from it though. I've got to be totally honest with you. I didn't get the buzz from it. I didn't get the buzz from the sale. I got the buzz from talking to the customer. But once I started in the estate agency, I got the buzz for the sale.
Yeah.
I think it's because you can't sell anything that's worth more than a house to somebody.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Other than businesses, I guess. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did car sales. That was my first sales role, so to speak. But again, it wasn't. I got the buzz from the customer. It was like you've pointing to the right direction of the car.
Yeah.
I worked at Arnold Clark, so for me, even though I was in the new dealership, which was Fiat and Jeep, I still had access across the road on all the used second-hand vehicles. So if they didn't want to buy a new car, I could take them over there, basically. But the commission was like less if I sold them a car over there.
Yeah.
So it was always like incentivized for you to try and sell them a new car. But just finding that car, that's what gave me that buzz.
Yeah.
And then obviously seeing commissions jump. And to be fair, I still actually don't even know how the commission structure fully worked, to be brutally honest, because I remember selling this 67 brand new Jeep car to a cash buyer, which I suppose in the eyes of the car dealership, you get more money when you're selling them. Obviously, the finance and gap insurance and link protection, all that jazz, service plan. And I remember like being paid like something like 50 quid.
Yeah.
I think it was on this 67 grand motor. Whereas I'd just go and sell this second-hand car for 20 grand across the road, I'd get 130.
Yeah.
And that was the taste where, I mean, like I say, again, for me, I got the buzz from, like you say, speaking to the customer and getting that deal done. That was the joy moment. And then when you see the pound coins stack up, obviously that's where you equally go, okay, it's quite good.
I think for me, because I worked at Nissan, and it's the year that the Duke came out, and there was believe it or not, because you see them everywhere, there was a waiting list. And literally people would just come in and leave a deposit. There was no real joy in it, for me, doing that.
It was easy.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's because people were walking in and they're just going, oh, we decided we want the 1.6 Duke in red with the black leather. Okay. Yeah.
Order form.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And just there wasn't nothing really in that for me. Outside of being an estate agent, my favourite job was actually where I met my best mate after I finished, after I came out of hospital. I was told not to get a job for a long time. They just sort of said, get yourself better and all that sort of stuff. And I came out of the hospital on a Wednesday and I got my job on the Friday. So it didn't take very long. And I met my best mate who he probably, outside of my daughter, he's probably, you know, the person that got me through those 3 or 4 years where, you know, I'd come out of hospital. I didn't really know what I was going to do. So those 3 or 4 years before I had my daughter, I would say he's probably a massive influence for me. And you know, we were both just store boys at like a delivery company for lorry parts.
Right.
And yeah, I just enjoyed it. I met him. You know, it was a good way to get back into everyday life. He's gone on to like be a really big player in that industry now, and that's all down to me. So no, but he's always been this person that you can just rely on.
Yeah,
You couldn't wish for a better mate.
that's awesome. To be fair, so you're still best mates.
Still best mates. Go and play golf. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So from Nissan, then, how long was you in car sales for?
Probably about 2 years. And before I was leaving Nissan, because they were going down the electric car route at the time. They were bringing out the Leaf. It just didn't really excite me whatsoever.
Was that their first one? Now, I've been thinking.
Yeah, electric. It's the first real popular electric car, I think, going.
Love taxi drivers back in the day.
Yeah, I think you had the hybrids, which I can't remember what they were called, but you had the Leaf was like the fully first electric that really took off in the country, but they were really expensive. I think they were made up in Sunderland, and it's like all British, which was good, you know, good for the industry. But yeah, I was leaving there, and I got offered a job at Seat, which was right outside the flat that I lived in at the time, or the Connells Group. And I thought, well, I've done cars, let me go and have a go at this. And I met a guy called Jeff, who I still talk to now. He was the area director at the time when he interviewed me. And by the time he offered me the job a week later, he'd stepped down to a branch manager role in the city centre, because he was coming sort of towards the end of wanting to be travelling all around. So, and the next area director still took me on, and I worked with him. And yeah, I mean, he's always said to me, the reason like I say, still talk to him now, the reason I've been successful is because I've always taken the old school. Because when I started, it's like before your time, really.
Yeah.
When I started, you still had to take a proper picture, print it out, stick it to a set of details. It's only 15, 14 years ago or whatever, but it sounds like it was forever ago.
Yeah, it does almost.
And Rightmove didn't get you anywhere near as many sales as the Leicester Mercury, the local paper. So your write-up had to be really good. And he told me that I took traditional estate agency, and obviously because I was fairly young at the time, took it with modern, how things were changing with Rightmove and then Zoopla and then social media. He said, because you've flexed it together, you know, you're going to be successful. And he was sort of semi-right, I guess.
Did you work under him then? So
yeah. So I worked under him for about a year or so, and then I went off. So I made like I went from trainee to neg to senior neg to lister, all in like the year that I worked for him. I just hit figures quickly. He set me what I think is still an unreasonable target to become a lister, knowing that in that period of time that he'd given me to get the target, my daughter was going to be born, and my daughter was born quite traumatically. She wasn't breathing, so she had to be emergency C-sections, and then her mum was really ill straight after that. So I basically had to have 4 weeks off, which, when you think about it now, lots of people do that anyway. But at the time, that was going to be 4 weeks eating into my target. So I decided to reduce my target by however long it took to when my daughter was born, Perry. And I thought, well, I'm just going to hit it in that time. I hit it the day before I went off on pat leave. And then when I came back, I was offered for the third time the chance to go and run a branch, which was a branch that lost money year after year after year. And it was basically a demotion in terms of money because I couldn't earn the commission there. But I went and took it on and made it a profitable branch within 12 months, became the number one agent in the town within 12 months, which was absolutely unheard of. And my career just sort of went from there. And in the end, 2-3 years later, I became the director there, and Jeff was still the manager, and you know, he worked under me for a bit. But we always just had a really great relationship. And I then gave him a role in land to get him out of branch because he'd sort of had enough by that point. And he's still in that land role now, probably coming up to retirement. Probably won't want me to say that, but he's probably coming up to retirement. And yeah, I think I popped in to see him the other day, you know, 12, 13 years later. I can just pick up a conversation like we'd left it off yesterday.
that is class, to be fair, and it's amazing, to be honest. So, I mean, so you said that Jeff took a step down to kind of slow down. Would you say that is the same scenario you in terms of you wanted to be on the the ground more local to home, so you could have that family tech have the same purpose for Jeff, was it?
Yeah, I think so. I think Jeff wanted to get away from maybe the politics of corporate area management. Was probably the thing. Much like me, and I make zero apologies for it. If it comes into your head, I'll probably say it, because I believe that you should just say what you think. Um, and that's not always the way in the corporate world. And it can win you a lot of friends to your face and earn you a lot of enemies behind your back.
Yeah, I can believe all that, to be brutally honest. So, but that's an amazing career, to be fair. The fact that somebody interviewed you, took a step down, and then within how many years that you become.
I was his boss within, I think, 3.5, maybe. I made it to that area manager, area partner, whatever they called it back then.
Okay. And how long in total was you with Connells for?
10.
10. Okay. So that was a good length for your career then, to be fair.
Yeah.
And obviously you joined EXP 5 months ago, was it?
Yeah, so signed up in January, did nothing really until April, because I got other things going on, as you know. So I really put my foot down probably end of April, beginning of June, end of April, beginning of May, and sort of hit the ground a little bit more in June. But it's been a good, 4 or 5 months really. And the USP for me is that I'll only work with 20 houses at a time. So I don't really want to. I don't want to become this agent that's got hundreds and hundreds of for sale boards up and non-sold. I think in those 5 months, I've gained 43 5-star Google reviews, which is pretty good.
Yeah, awesome.
Almost the majority of those are from people who couldn't sell with another agent. The majority of them I've put the prices up on and still sold them for asking price or above. The house that we sat in today was on with another agent. I didn't sell. There's a sold board outside right now, and next door there's a for sale board with another agent. So I've been pretty happy with the last 4 or 5 months.
I mean, what is it you're doing differently then, is what the key question there is.
Is that back to the old school, but blending it. So I'm about to launch a barn conversion for £900,000 in a lovely place called Farmtown, which is Cullerton, between sort of where we are right now and Ashby. A place that you would aspire to live in. And that's been on with Fine and Country for a long, long time. But 695 for starters. 895 for starters. So not in the price bracket. And if you know your stats in this industry, which is, if I could give anybody some advice, is find out the stats of what works and what doesn't. Because Rightmove and Zoopla release plenty of them to us, but most people don't bother reading them.
Yeah, true.
Up to that 900, £1 million mark, people are looking up to 20, 30 mile radius. If you put up to 900,000 into a search where they are, and the 20, 30 mile radius, 895, only £5,000 off that price bracket, brings you out on page 4, I think it was, 3 or 4. People are not seeing his house, their house. Really lovely couple, actually. But most importantly, it's a 5-bedroom detached, 5-bedroom barn conversion with like half an acre of land, a private lane. It's an incredible place. It's got 7 lines of writing about it. 7 lines of writing, 56 pictures and a floor plan.
Mentor. It does make me laugh when I see stuff like that, to be honest, in terms of the lack of effort, regardless actually of the price of the property. But to be fair, you would probably expect a little bit more effort and something a bit more high value naturally, because the customer's going to be paying a higher fee.
I just think you do every property the same, to the same quality,
Great.
and I think there's a lack of imagination sometimes with people viewing properties and understand how their world would fit into that property. So you perhaps need to write it into the details a little bit. There's loads of helping hands these days. Like when I started, you have to write it off imagination. These days you've got AI and you've got people who would write for you. You've got, assistants left, right and centre who can do those things, and you can farm that work out.
Yeah.
And yet we've got a barn conversion in Farmtown, come and take a look. And it is every nook and cranny of a picture. It doesn't surprise me that they haven't sold.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I'm one that I'm very passionate about. I actually love writing, to be fair. So, like, don't get me wrong, we do use ChatGPT. But equally, what I tend to do myself is I virtually write it myself, and then spit it into ChatGPT, hoping that it will send me something back that is a little bit more fluffed up, shall we say?
Yeah, well, I struggle with like dyslexia and stuff like that, and I'll try and write the whole thing out, and I'll just get it checked. Whether it be ChatGPT or just put it through Word or whatever, I just get it checked to make sure I'm not writing something that's absolutely mad. But just sending it out to the client as well, like all the old school practices seem to have gone. So when I showed that client, when they invited me round off a prospecting letter, so I actually wrote to them 7 times.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I write to people every single week, about 100 houses every single week. But I wrote to those guys 7 times because they reduced and reduced and just sat on the market. And I just thought I'd actually been in that barn conversion before they lived in it. They're the only people to ever live in it because my stepdad did the first fixing for the plumbing.
Oh, right.
So it's one of those ones where I thought I really want that property. Yeah, it's just, they just didn't, they had never even seen their advert. They just assumed Fine and Country as an agent were Fine and Country and it was just going to sell. So when I showed them the advert, they were really disappointed. And I've sent them out what I've done, with drones and all that sort of stuff. But the old school part of it, of the write-up, they've got a family room that's currently got a pool table in it, but it could be used for so many different things. But you need to explain that a little bit, because unless somebody's gone and seen it, it's better to explain it than show every nook and cranny and somebody think, oh, that won't work for me.
Yeah.
Explain what it could be and invite people to come and look at it.
Yeah. No disrespect, but again, going back to the value point from my perspective, if you're about to spend nearly £1 million on a property, I literally want to know everything about it, all the options I've got when it comes to owning it, buying it, and being a bar conversion potential restriction. So, but just to have a few sentences in there is pretty important,
And especially selling lines.
a big, and this is the thing, I guess, as well, where obviously Fine and Country is all franchised off, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it is individually operated.
Yep.
So those sellers were previously working with an individual within that umbrella.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, unfortunately, their perception now might be on that franchise, where actually it should be on that individual.
Yeah.
It's the individual that's let them down, which I guess is what I think is the good thing and can be a bad thing for these self-employed models, because actually if there is an agent that unfortunately isn't doing everything that they say they're going to do for the customer, then it is going to reflect on them.
Yeah.
If they're doing amazing, then it is going to reflect on them in a good light.
It's not all rosy. Not everything's perfect in the EXP world with that, and I'm sure there's lots of people who see posts on social media who think everybody who works for EXP is just selling the dream. And there is an element of that. I've criticised people for that, absolutely. But where the EXP logo comes in, or the EXP advert on Rightmove comes in, that can sometimes harm you, as if somebody isn't doing something quite as good as what you think you're doing it. I had a lady call me the other day and say, she was viewing the house with me, and they said, oh, you actually got another one on such and such a road. I said, actually, that one's not with me. That's with somebody else. I can put you in touch, to get that viewing sorted out. So I didn't think it would be you, because the pictures are really bad and it's got nothing in the write-up. And I was like, yeah. And then you worry a little bit, is that gonna harm me? I guess once you have a proper brand within EXP, where you like locally, there's like yourselves and Riva Lily and people like that, where it's their actual brand, it's so much easier to distinguish. But when you first start out, you have got that everybody's EXP. So I mean, there's definitely some little pitfalls with the model, but they're, compared to every other model that I looked at and every other option I could have taken, the pros outweigh the cons massively with that.
Okay. What was that then for you? What was those pros that outweighed the others?
First pro was Adam Day.
Okay.
I trust him. I like him. I met him a long time ago. Don't know if he remembers, but then we spoke 4 or 5 years ago. Me, him, Scott, Gunn. And at the time, it sounded too good to be true. And I probably should have got it. Looking back, it's not a regret whatsoever. I don't really regret anything in my career. But looking back, I think, 5 years ago, I could be like working with 100, 200 agents now, like Scott is. And, I'd never be the poster boy because he's a lot better looking. But, it would have been nice to maybe have been in a bit earlier.
Yeah.
But that opportunity will never stop growing, because the industry will never stop churning people in and out of it and finding the next superstar who might want to join. But yeah, Adam was a big part of it. Then it was the fact that I can just do what I want.
Yeah.
Within reason, just pretty much do what I want. There's not really any restrictions with what you can do with EXP. I had concerns about things like your portal leads going through to like Moneypenny, for instance. I thought, I don't want to do that, but it's actually a godsend. It's fantastic. It's a really great system.
Yeah.
I was worried it was going to be like a bad negotiator who took really poor details of somebody who's rang in, and then you're trying to, it's not got enough numbers in the telephone number, or the email doesn't work, or where's that address. That actually turned out to be fantastic. So yeah, even my little concerns ended up being pros. But yeah, Adam was the big draw for me, and just wish I'd done it a bit sooner.
We had that personal relationship, like you say, from back in the day, where his obviously business got bought out by.
Yeah, I don't know if Adam even remember that we would have met at some point, but once we started talking on LinkedIn and stuff like that, sort of, it was when I was coming to the end towards Connors. I probably did another year at Connors before then moving on to Spice of Heart. But I don't regret any of it though. That like I said, that's my thing. I wish I could have got in earlier now, looking back, but I don't regret that because what I learned in my last year at Connells, and then my 2 years at Spice Heart were things that have set me in good stead for running my own business again. And down the line, employing people again. I learned a lot about what to and unfortunately what not to do. Depends on your outlook on it.
Absolutely. I mean, so 5 months into your journey, and you told me you've got, I hope I'm right in saying, is 20 properties sold and 17 on the market?
The other way around.
Okay,
Yeah,
17
yeah,
or 20 on the market.
yeah. I've actually got people waiting to come to the
I
market.
was going to say, because you said that you set your benchmark at 20 listings. So you
Yeah.
literally, are you that adamant on keeping it at 20? You will not take on
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, well, it sort of depends. I mean, if I'm tying up a sale today, I'll list one today, but I've got a waiting list of 7 people to come to the market, who just know that they'll be loaded once I can service them properly.
Right.
But they'd rather wait for me than go with somebody else.
I
Which
find that incredible, to be honest. The fact that you can build that relationship with somebody where you might only have sat on their sofa for an hour
Mm.
is incredible. So how do you do that?
I'm just sort of pretty direct with what I talk to them about. There'll be no fluff. If somebody says to me, "What can I do to improve my house?" And there's something striking that nobody else has told them, but I'll tell them. But the majority of the time is, I went to a house not long back, and I went in and gave them a price with evidence. I still print out comparables like I did 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. I still do that part of the job, but I still take my iPad because that's the new way and show things. And this person had a valuation 10 grand less than me, and 2 valuations 50 grand more than me.
Right. Okay.
Right.
50,000.
£50,000 in the £200,000 bracket, by the way. So, absolutely craziness. And that person said, "Well, I want to try at that price." I was just like, "No, like, go and use a different agent." And that person is waiting currently to come to the market. I sold 7 houses in 7 days, a week ago, week and a half ago. So that list has come down. So there's over double figures waiting to come to the market, but she's next on the list.
I mean, that is just like I say, it's insane. How is it purely down to you being honest, direct, but equally building that relationship? Because again, like typical valuation is an hour, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think people. I try and explain to people what I've done in my career.
Okay.
Um,
Gives you credibility.
yeah. So a lot of people, my prospecting letters is probably where my business comes from a lot of the time because I'm still not well known enough as a brand for people to pick up the phone and think who am I going to have out to my property. And I cover the whole of Leicestershire. I've not set myself down to like LE2 where I live or LE67 where I grew up. I'll go anywhere in Leicestershire, but I actually turn down more vendors to come to the market than I've had one person tell me no, and in the last week I've probably turned down 2 or 3 people to come to the market because I just didn't vibe with them. I didn't want to put them on the waiting list and wait for them. It just didn't sort of work for me. But my prospecting letters that go out are, I'm really sorry about writing to you quite directly. This is who I am. This is what I've done in my career. This is what my most recent Google review in your situation has said. Give me a shout. So if I'm writing to somebody who's had price reduction after price reduction, I'll send them a letter regarding, I don't know, Jamie from Melbourne Road in Ibstock. He reduced his house from 160 all the way down to 135 with another estate agent. And I went out to see him, put him on the market at 140 and sold it on that same weekend for the asking price. Bearing in mind he'd been on at 135 and made his way all the way down from 160. Now, put that in a letter as credible Google review, and he's wrote that Google review. I don't ask people to say certain things. He's literally just put what he thinks. The next person who reads that has got to go, it's got to be worth a shout, right? And then they already know what I do. They already know who I am. They already know what the local market's saying about me. And yeah, it doesn't make it easy. It makes it so much easier to be honest with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. So, am I assuming there then that you will get your Google review before it's completed?
Not necessarily.
No.
Not necessarily. I'd always ask for a Google review from people because it's sort of the lifeblood of how people go about deciding whether they're going to give you a call or not. And I try to give people will take the mickey out of this, but world class service. I've always talked about world class. People talk about being good. To be good in a estate agency, how the industry is, you've only got to be able to pick up the phone and say hello, in my opinion, because the industry is so poor on the whole as an average in terms of how much customer care is taken, in my opinion. Too many estate agents are about themselves and not the customer. It's got to be the other way around, and then your own brand builds itself. So to be world class in this industry, you've only got to be pretty good, so aim for world class and deliver that. And people will sort of buy into that if you can just deliver. There's estate agents now that are shutting at 4 o'clock in the week and 12 o'clock on a Saturday and telling people they've got to do their own viewings. I went out to see a chap who's unfortunately becoming more and more disabled due to a disability that he's got, and asking him to do his own viewings when he's finding it difficult to become mobile is absolutely craziness. But
Yeah, it is.
most people want to go and view his house after 6 o'clock. It's either making somebody wait. The guy who owns this house wanted to view a house the other day, and we gave him a call, and their next viewing slot was something like the 28th of September. Well, I'm telling you now, they're not busy until the 28th of September. They just can't fit it in their little, because they've got their morning meetings and they've got their one-to-ones and they've got, this, that and the other. Got to have their lunch and their, 2 or 3 bait breaks or whatever.
Yeah.
The industry should be about the customer, not us. And I think that's what
But it
people
was like how they're selling it. I'm sure they'll be able to do that a lot quicker.
Well, it makes you worry though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes you worry that they might not have been able to do it any quicker and might not have wanted to do anything differently. But it's an industry that it really needs a revamp in terms of customer expectation, because we are selling the biggest asset in most people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so in going back to those letters that you send, is every letter tailored differently from you to your potential vendors?
Yeah, pretty much.
So you don't have any prospecting tool that you use. You are literally just looking at Rightmove, using your own spreadsheet.
No, I use the Loop tool, the Loop prospecting tool. I think it's fantastic, but I will go in and change many before I write to 15 people in Ibstock who have all reduced their house last week about Jamie's house that constantly got reduced and then couldn't sell, and yet we sold it in 24 hours for the asking price it was put up. I'll make sure I go in and change that. Then if I'm going to go write to people who've been on the market for absolutely ever and haven't sold, well, then I'll go in and probably put Mita's Google review on from LE4, where she was on the market with Seth's. 235, been on the market forever, not having viewings. I put it up to 250, so 15 grand more expensive. Sold it in 2 weeks for the asking price, but it was about doing things differently. So before I write to anybody in LE4 or anybody who's a slow mover, I perhaps go and change that and put that review in there and make sure those people are reading something that's relevant to them rather than just a generic, this is who I am.
I mean, I gotta say, it's completely all credible what you just said, to be fair. And the fact that, I'll be honest, I wouldn't personally have the time right now to go in and well, I could find the time. You can always find the time. So actually, I'll change that statement. But finding the time to go in and tweak individual letters to get those new vendors, which is why I guess you stick to your 20 listings at a time. So you know that you can get the right customer and you can do the job well and you can do the right thing for them, getting an extra £15,000. That's incredible, to be fair.
And, for me, there's, I probably write to 100 people a week, which sounds a lot when you only want 20 houses on the market.
Yeah.
But like the other week when I went from having 20 to 13, because I sold 7 in 7 days, and the waiting list comes down. And don't forget, a lot of people on that waiting list are people that are coming to the end of their current contract. So it's not like they're just waiting for me.
Yeah.
They're also waiting to get out of a 26-week agreement with another estate agent where they've still got to give 28 days and probably pay a withdrawal fee, which is mental in my eyes, just absolutely craziness. I think the world of estate agent needs to have a look at itself around some of the things that we ask a customer to do. But
Yeah.
I always want to have the next one sort of lined up. So probably write to 100 people a week, but that probably brings at least 2 instructions a week. So for, I don't know what it costs you paint in paper and ink, not a lot if you've got a decent printer, and not a lot if you can get yourself into Costco. It probably cost me £80 a week in post stamps.
Yeah.
But I recently had 2 weeks ago where 2 of the houses that came to the market made me a fee of just 2 fees in total of just over £21,000.
Is it?
So for 80 quid, and one of those is the farmhouse. So I wrote to them 7 times. So
I was going to say, it's 7 letters there.
Yes, 7 letters. So it's it's about £4.80.
Yeah. I mean, so I normally say, to be fair, after 5, stop.
Yeah.
And we do it every 2 weeks. It's quite interesting. You do it every week, and it's like,
I have parameters. So again, I've always been very interested in what Rightmove, Zoop are on the market tell you about where customers journeys take a change, you know, so without giving away every secret of what I do, but, you know, Rightmove have always said for years and years and years that people reduce, and then around 21 days to start thinking about changing their estate agent. Well, the first thing that most estate agents do is see a reduction and go and door knock it if they're proactive, or potentially write to them. Well, on day one, they're not so interested. Day two, they're not so interested. It's a bit like having a Domino's pizza and somebody coming knocking your door and saying, "Do you want another Domino's pizza?" If you're a bit fat like me, you might go for it, but most people are going to say, "I'm absolutely fine."
Yeah.
You know, but ask me in a week, ask me in 2 weeks, I'll probably be ready for another one.
Yeah.
Well, Rightmove and Zoopla and that, I've always told you around 21 days, people start to think about changing agencies. So I write to them around day 18. It will land probably day 20, day 21. It'll probably sit on their side, on their table. This guy here, Chris, he had the same letter. You know, he called me, I took him on the market, I sold his house.
I mean, that is great, mate. You've got a good setup, but I think it's the years of experience you've had in the role the roles that you had over the years that have enabled you to do this at this point. Because you said you've also had, was it 9 completions?
Yeah, 9 completions in 5 months, just over 5 months.
That is next level, to be brutally honest. So you've got a good setup with solicitors and mortgage advisors.
Yeah, so there'll be people out there who say, you know, like the simplified group of solicitors are, you know, conveyor belt solicitors, blah, blah, blah. I'd rather use a high street. My experience still hasn't changed with high street solicitors. They don't really want to talk to you. They don't really want to talk to their client. I'm not having to go all of them, but it's still the impression I get. Whereas I've worked with Simplify and PPL and DC Law now for over a decade. I've got a good relationship. So my clients know they're going to get a good, you know, a really, really good opportunity to have regular updates and get their property through quicker. Averaging around like 9 weeks from sold to completion. It's not a long time, you know. I think the average in the industry is still around 19 weeks. So the 10 weeks there of saving you on bills. I'm actually paying myself in terms of most people's mortgage, what, £1,000 a month?
Yeah.
Plus all your other bills. Say you're saving 2 months of that, and I'm charging however much. I'm pretty much paying myself by getting it through quicker.
To be fair, you've got some good ways of looking at it, to be fair. Do you present it to the customer like that in some scenarios?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why would you not, you know, so there's estate agents out there that will go out and say 30, 40 grand more than what the house is worth, just get them on the market and then work them down in their 26-week agreement to the price it should be. I try and put it on at the price it should sell at, if not just slightly more. You know, we want to try and get the maximum we absolutely can for somebody. I think I'm achieving 99.1% of asking price here today. It's pretty decent, you know, so it's not bad.
It's amazing. Anyway, I can't say
It's not bad. It's I haven't done my figures for September. That's where we were at the end of August. I'm still into my figures, even though I'm not in the corporate world. But you know, if I'm selling a £200,000 house and charging them £4 grand plus VAT, I'm probably paying half of that in just mortgage payments that they're saving. Plus, by the way, I'm selling pretty quickly. My average sales time is 27 days. You know, so you've got 27 days to sell. What national average at the minute? 4 months, I think. So so there's 3 months of savings. And if you're using my solicitors, my mortgage advisor, and so are the buyers, the chances are I'm probably going to save you about 5 months of payments. So, you know, I probably should put my price up.
And you probably get that same reaction if you say it to them like that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I told somebody the other day when we exchanged and completed it, from putting it on the market to completion was 52 days. Been on the market for a year with Frank Innes, which is part of the Connells Group. You know, and then she'd just been told to reduce the house down to 175. I put it on at 200. Sold it within a week. So completed within 52 days. Like I say, I said I probably should have charged you more. You know, and she laughed. You know, it's tongue in cheek.
Yeah, of course it is.
But there's value in what I've done.
Yeah, absolutely. You've just got an extra £25,000 for the house.
Especially what they told them to be put on. I mean, they were still on the market at 195 when I took it on, so I only put it up by £5,000. But you know, their recommendation was reduced to 175.
It is interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong, the numbers you've said there are even mind-blowing for me to hear, to be brutally honest, because most estate agents, to be fair, if you're the second agent walking in to that listing, they're more than likely going to try and get it to come on the market for a lesser price, to be quite frank. And it might be valid in some scenarios, or it might be a case of that the agent generally hasn't put enough effort into selling it, whether it's marketing, whether it's the description, whether it's the portals they're advertising on, or whether it's they're not doing the old traditional estate agency, which is listening to their customers' needs and wants and property matching them effectively. But I always remember, to be fair, I had a listing that had been on the market 9 or 10 months with an agent close to me, and the couple that ended up buying that property, when they phoned up, to say like, can we book a viewing? And I showed them round, and that they wasn't on the market themselves then. I ended up going on to sell their house as well, which was cool. Because it was in the early days. And I said, like, you said to me, he was looking for like 12 months. This has been on for 9 months. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't interview with his other agent, and they turned around and said, we thought it was a completely different property.
Yeah.
And like, for me to hear that,
Yeah.
this was like, I'm not even joking. I think this was like month 2
Yeah.
of me having my own business. I was like, wow, like,
It just tells you what you've done is really good. But
Yeah.
you also mentioned something there about listening. And like, that is the biggest, I think that's one of the biggest problems in the estate agency world is, you know, I've listened to so many Rightmove, Zoopla, internal recorded calls where customers giving away golden information, and all we want to do is fill in a box because that's what we've got to do to get it on. Yeah, get it onto a CRM system and make sure that it works for them. But you know, there was a lady who viewed this house called Paula, and she lives sort of Castle Donington near East Midlands Airport. And she wanted to live villagey location, but in LE67. Doesn't know the area so well. She had around 250 to spend, 260. Wanted to go and have a look at bits and bobs. She wanted to have a nice little garden. Really wanted to have a garage. This property doesn't have a garage, but it's a lovely property. And she wanted to view this. Now she got me off the phone really, really quickly when she booked this viewing because she was busy at work. But I thought, I don't think that's the right property for her. So when I went to meet her here to do the viewing, I said, she had a look round. I knew it wasn't the right property. I could just tell why she was here without asking too many questions. Said, I've got the right property for you. It's in a place called Newbold Clawton. It's a semi-detached house, so it's not detached, but it has got the garage, so it has got the thorough parking, it has got the low maintenance garden, but it's a pretty garden, you know, nevertheless. Come and have a look. And she said, I've never heard of that place. I said, well, come and have a look. And literally she walked through the front door and just said, how much is it? And that was it.
Is she going to buy it?
Yeah, she's gone to buy it. It should be exchanging next Friday.
So what was interesting, she wanted a detached though, did you say?
Well, she wanted a semi or a detached, but she thought she wanted to be in central LE67, which is here. But she wanted village location. Now you can't be central LE67 and a village location really. So it went against the two things didn't sort of coincide. So it was just sort of listening to what she really wanted. Like the garage was important. The layout of the property was totally different to what she was describing as to what this is. So just listening a little bit, and her Google review says exactly the same. I would never have viewed that house if you hadn't told me about it,
Awesome.
even though it's in LE67.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, for me, that if you can nail selling a property to somebody, a listing that they haven't even saw or thought about, for me, that is like the biggest win of them all. Like, I nearly a couple of years ago did basically a house swap off market to homeowners, and I was just literally like, you're looking for what? You're looking for what? And it was literally a case of like knowing exactly what they was looking for, the locations and why. And we ended up doing 2 second viewings on them both, and unfortunately it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But I thought if I land this, I was like, I'm going to be absolutely buzzing. But even I have sold properties to clients,
Yeah.
it's not even gone to the market.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing this afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got a listing.
Got three viewings on a house that's not on the market. It's been on the market with another agent. They've not had viewings for over a year. She's taken it off the market. I've put the price up. Got 3 viewings happening this afternoon without marketing it. She can't believe. She doesn't understand how it's possible when she hasn't had viewings previously.
I think sometimes the creative suspense for those potential viewers, because it's not online, but I'm going to assume you're doing the viewings back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully they might see each other as they walk out.
Absolutely, we'll see each other when they walk out.
You know, which is what we want, because we want to get the best result for the client. At the end of the day, and if they were selling their house with us, they'd want us to do the same.
Well, but I think the thing is, if you have listened and you have registered somebody correctly, you can do it. You can sort of tell people what they're doing. You know, so the 3 people who are going to view that house today viewed another house with me. They told me what was wrong with that house and why that one doesn't work for them. So I've rang them up and told them, this is coming to market. You're never going to see it online, so it's going to be done discreetly. But you're going today at 2:30, 3 o'clock and 3:30. And they're all like, well, we'll trust you because you know what we're looking for. So we'll go and have a look.
Well, fingers crossed you sell it, to be fair.
Absolutely.
So, so in terms of you and where you want to take your business moving forward, what does that look like?
It's a good question because I've got a couple of downliners, downpipers, whatever you want to call people. Take the mickey, I call them downpipers, but I think they're called downliners. I don't really like either of those words. But so I've got like somebody trading in sort of Cambridge area, some trading in London, probably somebody starting soon towards Hitchin and places like that. And really, I want to grow a Leicestershire team of people similar to me who are not just about numbers, are about the people. And there's a few people flirting with that idea, I think. and I'd love to help them. Perhaps then turn that into a team, much like yourself and a few others have, um, and sort of go from there. I just don't know how far I want to go. I want to be one of the things that interested me about EXP was not the rev share element of it. It was more about the fact that I could support people all over the country, like I have in my previous jobs. Somebody can pick the phone up in Bristol or Royal Wootton Bassett or London and say, "What would you do with this?" And I can tell them.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, why I did it. So I guess growing that Leicestershire business potentially is where I want to go. But I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and I'm happy with vendors and buyers just being grateful for the hard work that I do put in.
Yeah, I think because of looking at where your career's been, and to be honest, I could spend a few hours talking about all of this stuff, but because of where your career's been and what you've done and the job positions you've been in throughout those years, it's not also just about helping the customer and getting the best result for the customer. Obviously, you've trained a lot of people over the years as well. So if you can create like a mini team
Yep.
local to you, which having you as a mentor would be absolutely immense, having that team local to you and doing it exactly your way without the KPIs from the corporates behind you and stuff like that. Don't do this, etc., etc. What you're doing now is already working for you in your short period of time. So if you can literally do that with 3, 5, 7 local agents under your umbrella, that could be something phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at the Connells Group, then you look at Spice of Heart, and you look at then local people around here, and then further afield. There's people that I took on as negotiators who are branch managers. People are area directors. There's people that are higher than that. There's people that I actually texted a lad yesterday who his first job in a estate agency was under me. In branch in Oadby. He's now set up his local estate agent. He's doing really, really well over the last few years. He's sort of done a similar model where he's got partner agents and all that sort of stuff. Two of those partner agents used to work for me as well. And then you look at it, and I just texted me and says, I'm really proud of, sort of where you've managed to get yourself to from where you started. So just being able to say that you've influenced some people's lives in a good way is important. But yeah, I guess we'll see where it goes. I'm not.
It's fuel, isn't it, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, listen, honestly, Dan, thank you for your time today, mate. Literally, I could spend hours talking to you, but thank you. And I'll see you.
Thank you very much.